Hello and welcome once again to HeroQuest fans. Today, doing a little something different, still related to HeroQuest, of course. You may be wondering about this background here. This is not my bed. I know some people have recorded videos from their bed. This is actually a felt tablecloth used for playing poker. Just trying it out. It's got some wrinkles in it. Anyway, this is my cheapo, low budget background for now. But what I wanted to talk about is HeroQuest Homebrew. Now, the HeroQuest game itself, as you can see in this little side picture over there, that's not my actual set, but it lends itself very easily to homebrew. You can call them modifications, you can call them hacks, you can call them additions, fan creations, whatever you want. And this goes way back to the original game itself, back in 1989. So you had your 14 quests in the box, but at the end of the booklet, you also had a blank quest map, and they encourage you to create your own adventures. And they encourage you to photocopy the pieces, the parts, the cards, whatever you want to kind of make your own stuff. And yes, they sold their own official quest packs and things, but back in the day, we just couldn't get enough, so we created all kinds of crazy stuff. Or you have to modify an adventure because maybe the people playing didn't make it out alive, and so they had to try it again, but you didn't want to make it too easy because they had everything memorized. So anyway, but one of the communities that's really sparked my creative juices was Ye Old Inn, formerly known as Dwayne Agan's Inn, one of these fan forums, fan sites back in the day. And I can credit them for a lot of the ideas that they exposed me to. Some of these ideas come from different actual official releases. There were also magazines that published um, custom quests, custom tiles, new miniatures. Now, Games Workshop, Citadel Miniatures, they did those early miniatures, and of course, the whole Warhammer Fantasy line was its own thing. So they were always trying to push people to buy new miniatures. So they'd say, "Oh, here's some miniatures we're selling anyway. Oh, and by the way, here's this cool quest that you can put them in to kind of encourage people to buy them." And they have little guides on how to paint the metal and everything, how to paint the plastic. So what I want to show in this video are some of the homebrew um, additions to HeroQuest that I've made. And I can't take 100% credit for these because most of them are based on other people's ideas. Some of the artwork is borrowed from Pathfinder or HeroQuest. And of course, none of these are for sale. This is all just private, personal use for fun. But I kind of just wanted to show off some of my creations. And certainly, a lot of this can be credited to other people. A lot of times I'll see someone's idea that they put out on, let's say, on the forums or some other fan site, and it's like, I like that, but if I just tweak it a little bit, this is really going to work well for my own quests at my own game table. So without further ado, here are some of the things. So the first thing we're going to look at are new heroes. So now the classic heroes in the game, everybody knows the barbarian, elf, dwarf, and wizard. But one of the ones that, and he's mentioned this in interviews, Stephen Baker, the chief designer, let me get this right side up for you there. He talks about how they went through all these different stages creating the game. Started out more like Dungeons and Dragons, and it got adapted over time to be more like a board game, which is what Hasbro, who owns Milton Bradley, putting out their board games, wanted. And of course, different people worked on the miniatures and so forth. But originally, one of the characters was going to be a ranger. So I tried to come up with a ranger character. I actually first heard about the ranger associated with HeroQuest because it sounds like such a stereotypical generic type of character, right? Well, just like a barbarian, dwarf, elf, and wizard. The ranger was in Legacy of Sorasil, a PC game. It actually came out on the Amiga and the Amiga CD32 console in '94, and it was, I believe, it was the last official HeroQuest related product that came out until the announcement of the new remake that's going to be coming out later this year. And yes, I did pledge the HeroQuest remake, and I'm planning to let everybody know what I think of it whether it was worth the money or not. But I certainly want to support the idea of the franchise, especially because the early publicity gave a lot of assurances that it was going to retain, the core essence of the game without changing a lot of stuff and just incorporating the best from the European and North American versions. Well, anyway, the Ranger was one of these early heroes that they talked about having, but that didn't make it into the final version. And he appears in Legacy of Soresil. Now, I totally guessed with his stats. I decided that instead of being like a super combat guy, he is going to have low body points. Now, I keep coming back to this character and tweaking it. So this may not be the final version of him, but I think 4 body points is right. Maybe 5 would be better because a 4 body point character is really weak, let's face it, in HeroQuest. Now, the Wizard's got 4, but he's got a lot of spells he can use. And you almost never have a hero fighting by himself. They're all supporting each other. So whether it's one person controlling 4 heroes or 4 people at the gaming table or 2 people each controlling 2, it's like you have multiple lives in a video game. So it's not like, oh, my one guy died. I guess that's it for me tonight. So, but anyway, I might give him 5 body points. But he starts out with a short bow, so he has a ranged weapon from the beginning. He also has a dagger for close range. So the dagger is 1, the short bow is 2, and just like the crossbow, he has to have 1 square between himself and the target to use the ranged attack. There's some debate among the HeroQuest community under the North American rules whether the crossbow should be able to strike those 4 connected diagonal squares from the character, but regardless of where you fall on that, he's got a weaker version of it. Now, he also is able to search for traps in a special way. So he has a one-time ability, and I'll show you. Now, these are just plastic sleeves to protect him, but I mean, this is chipboard that's had paper printed and stuck to it. So I'll show you the other side of it in a second here. Yeah, and you can get a glimpse of the other characters. That's the Mystic. So special abilities. So detect traps and secret doors. He actually has a card for this, and I'll show that to you as well. In fact, let me just dig that out, actually, because I have stuff for each character, and hopefully it'll go a little quicker as we go. And all those cards are in sleeves, but they don't really have to be. So here it is. So it's called Ranger Skills. And yes, I grabbed these images online. If you go to Pinterest, you can find all of them. Just manipulated it. So he's got this ability. So it's like he has a single spell, essentially. It's called Detect Traps and Secret Doors. Maybe use once per quest to either reveal any traps and secret doors in the room or corridor you're in, even if monsters are visible. Or you can reveal any trap on the opposite square adjacent to an open door. Regardless of outcome, the skill is used up in one try. Now, the idea of traps on the other side of the door is something that is the bane of many players' existence because there's no way to avoid it. If you go inside, you're going to get hit by the trap. There's no way you can detect it ahead of time. Oh well. So he can actually look and see if one is there, but he only gets to use that once. So it's kind of a one and done type of thing. You might say, gee, that's too weak, but I'm not trying to make the game too easy either. Now, it might be better if he could use this ability more than once. It might be nice if he could disarm the trap through the doorway, but I haven't decided that I want to go in that direction. So instead, he's just got this little one and done ability. Now, when he searches for traps and secret doors at the same time, this is similar to how in the European version rules, that's how you always search for traps and secret doors at the same time. Whereas in the North American version, it's a separate action. So things are getting down to the wire, he can do a quick search. Even if there's a bunch of monsters in the room, normally it has to be clear. Now, the ranger may instead declare he wishes to search the square opposite of an open door for traps without actually being in the room. In the case of a wandering monster trap, which does appear in some of the later expansions, that's you step on a square and a wandering monster just attacks you. And it's so well hidden that it can't be detected. Now, in actual practice, I tend to warn the heroes there's danger in the area, but I won't tell them what square, so it can't really be avoided. But in that case, this search instantly reveals the wandering monster, who does not attack until Zargon's turn. So that way you've got a chance. So this monster is just sitting there. Because normally with a wandering monster, the wandering monster gets to attack when you discover him. And then when it's Zargon's turn, the Zargon player gets to then move all of his monsters, which includes attacking again with that same monster. It's not a cheat. That's just how it works. So this gives him a little bit of an ability. If he plays it right. Also, extra movement. The ranger may always add one extra square, just one square, to his roll in the movement phase of his turn. This means a roll of 12 on 2 red dice would become 13. Even if this movement were reduced to 1 red die, he can still add the extra movement. Restrictions: may not wear armor except bracers or the cloak. So just like the wizard, he is limited in what types of armor he can wear. Again, I've made him very weak, so he will be a challenge to play. Even if I give him 5 body points as his maximum. But yeah, he's got 3 mind, and he starts with a ranged weapon. Also, the last thing I gave him is the ability to disarm traps without a toolkit. Now, it's similar to the dwarf, but with the dwarf, when he tries to disarm a trap, he can roll anything but a black shield for success. So he only has a 1 in 6 chance of failure, whereas the other heroes have to buy a toolkit for 250 gold, and they've got to, they only have a 50% chance of success. So if they roll a skull, which is 3 faces on the HeroQuest die, they fail. Well, this guy, he only has to roll a shield on 1 white die for success. So he has a 50% chance. So it's essentially like he starts with a toolkit. That was a long-winded way of explaining it. But anyway, that's the Ranger and his 1 ability. Now I've also incorporated an upgrade system to my heroes, but I'll get into that later. So while these heroes start out fairly weak, as they complete more quests, they can level up, so to speak, automatically. And I tried not to make it too complex because I didn't want to I still wanted to retain that simplicity that HeroQuest is known for. That, yes, it's got a little bit of learning curve, but not so much as some other games, some other tabletop or role-playing games out there. So I didn't want to overcomplicate it. But suffice to say, he does improve. All the other heroes do improve as they survive more quests. So let me just dig in here, and I'll show you. Switch over camera view here. So my little desk. So let's see. So these are the miniatures that I've got, and these are from the Reaper Bones miniatures line. So this is, and I'll switch back, this is the Ranger. And yes, I painted him in the style of the heroes from the base game, so it looks like he's just red plastic. Now I did retain the bases. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with that, but I ended up just taking these square plastic end caps used for hoses or pipes or furniture, and I just cut them off at the edge, and it makes a fairly nice square. It's slightly smaller, and it's an actual square. The HeroQuest bases are actually more like hexagons, squeezed hexagons, but these fit right on the board, and from a distance it looks like it would fit with the set. But yeah, this is an elf sniper who fits in for the Ranger. Reaper Bones, I'm not sponsoring them or anything. They're not sponsoring me. They put out a lot of miniatures, a lot of generic type miniatures you can use in any game, and I found a lot of cool designs that they have, which are fairly inexpensive compared to what you could be spending on, like, let's say Warhammer Fantasy or Metal or whatever, that fit in well with HeroQuest. So, and I decided to make a male and a female version of the Ranger. So, because that's the trend, is that you get the female barbarian and the male barbarian and the female elf and the male elf and so on. So there's the female version of the Ranger. Same exact stats, just personal preference, what you want to have. So we've got those. So that's the Ranger character. And next we have the Mystic. Actually, let me grab the other Ranger. Okay, so there's the female Ranger. So same stuff. Yep. I also made a variation of the card too. Let me just pull that out. At a certain point, you get so many assets that you don't know what to do with them, but the best thing to do is just decide ahead of time which ones you want to use, get them out, and of course, the testing is in the plane. If they're fun to use, then great. That's just what you need. So I may have misplaced, because it's a single card. Actually, no, here it is. So this is the other Ranger card. So there, just put a male Ranger. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's the same exact ability. You can get a closer view of the card here. Just pull out the sleeve. So this is US game card size, and it's superior smooth. There's a lot of services out there where you can get your custom cards printed if you want. Of course, you can just put it on paper. That works just as well. Now with these plastic sleeves, I can actually put them through a card shuffler without worrying about damaging the surface of the cards. So a manual card shuffler. So next we're going to look at the Mystic. Now this is also inspired by Legacy of Sorasil computer game, because Legacy of Sorasil is called HeroQuest 2, like it's the sequel to the original game, but there was never a board game. It was always a computer game, and yet it retains a lot of the conventions of a board game. I mean, you have spaces and everything, but people pointed out that it has a lot of similarities with Dungeons and Dragons, so you may have heard different things. I mean, D&D came out in the 70s, HeroQuest came out in the 80s, so there's some connections. Anyway, the Mystic. You are the Mystic, an elementalist trained in the use of some weapon types but unable to wear heavy armor. Pick 5 abilities from the elementalist deck. Choose wisely. So what I wanted to do is create kind of a combat mage type of character. And yes, I know the elf is kind of already that, because the elf is a good fighter, but he only has 3 spells. Well, this character is weak like the wizard. He's only got 4 body points. He has high mind points. He has spells, but not as many spells, because the wizard can have 9, whereas he only gets 5. And it's 5 out of a pool of 6 spells for each quest he can choose. And each one, of course, is just one use only, just like the wizard. But instead of starting with a dagger and he can just use the dagger and a staff, and okay, maybe the wizard staff, instead, this character can use a short sword and actually can use a broadsword even. So he could use a 3 attack die weapon. So he has better combat. And of course, there's no back to this one. But I will show you the one that I did create a back for. It's actually the first one I made. So there's the female mystic, the male mystic. Again, it's all just personal preference. But on the back here, so spellcaster, skill user. The mystic, elementalist, may use up to 5 skills or spells, whichever you want to call them, per quest. These 5 cards are drawn from the elementalist deck of 8. Sorry, I said 6. I meant to say 8. I forgot my own creation. May be chosen at random or by choice at the beginning of each quest, I guess however you're doing it, when free spell skill choice is allowed by the particular adventure. Any combination may be held at one time, and each is used according to the instructions on each card. Each use counts as an action on your turn and can be used once per quest. So really it's, I mean, a long-winded way of explaining just that she's got magic just like the wizard. She can't wear armor, only bracers and cloaks, just like the wizard. Can't use heavier weapons, including battle axe, crossbow, spear, longsword, bows, or equivalents. So somewhat limited in combat, somewhat weak. But when you see the spells, you'll see that it's actually a pretty powerful character here. And the Mystic was a character from Legacy of Sorasil, like I mentioned, who was pretty close to the wizard, basically like a female wizard. But again, I wanted to have the male and female options for these. The Ranger was a male character, but male and female. Okay, so here's the Elementalist Skills deck. So I just modified that image. So you got the fire turning into steam through the water. And these spells are actually, again, inspired by Legacy of Sorasil. And I decided to categorize them. So you've got, instead of earth, air, fire, and water, you've got hydro, pyro, aero, and terra. So it's there's a whole mod that I created where it replaces magic with alchemy. So instead of magic spells, you got alchemy skills. But it's all pretty much equivalent when you're playing as far as gameplay is concerned. So Rust for the heroes is kind of a cool thing. So you can basically reduce an enemy's attack strength. It takes some interpretation, but it targets the enemy's primary metal weapon, rendering it useless. This will reduce the enemy's attack strength to 1 combat die, 2 for stronger monsters like Fimers or Chaos Warriors. So if you're dealing with a quest pack with some really strong monsters, you can decide what that constitutes. Because the monster without his weapon can still attack you, because it's treated like an inherent ability, but it's just kind of a creative way to do it. Now, the computer game had these, and I just kind of used my imagination to decide how this should work. And of course, with inspiration from the other versions of the game. So you got Rust, you got the Lightning Bolt. This is not exactly the same. Well, I guess actually it is the same as the Chaos spell because you launch an electrical attack at, oh, but it's at one enemy. So in the game system, there's a spell called Lightning Bolt, but it is like a beam that travels across the board, and everything it hits takes 2 damage, whereas this is targeted at a single enemy. So it's not quite the same. And we've got Demoralize. I'm not joking, this is an actual spell in Legacy of Sorasil. This skill takes the fight out of one enemy, making them unable to attack or defend. They can only move away from the heroes if there's room to do so. It can be broken immediately or on a future turn by the victim rolling 1 red die for each of its mind points, which is standard. If a 6 is rolled, the effect is broken. So there you go. Healing Wind. This skill may be used on yourself or an ally. I say ally because it could be a hero, could be a mercenary, because you can hire mercenaries later in the quest packs. Restoring up to 6 lost body points, but cannot go over that character's starting number. So a stronger heal. Wall of Water. This skill generates a wall of water covering 1 square within your line of sight for 2 turns. Anyone crossing the square during that time must roll 3 combat dice, losing 1 body point for each skull rolled. And for fun, I found this miniature. I know it's ice. It's like a crystal. But I thought, well, it kind of reminds me of if you're any fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender out there, the waterbenders are like water wizards and they can generate ice too. So it shoots up out of the ground and stabs the enemy, or you could look at it as water is like buffeting them, but it blocks the square. So if they pass through, it's very powerful. Then you've got Wall of Fire. It's basically the same thing except it's fire instead of water. And there's a cool little plastic miniature of fire that's a nice little marker you can use on the board. Lightning Bolt, this is just an alternate design. I wasn't sure which design I wanted. But we've got Fear. Again, you think of this as a chaos spell, but Legacy of Sorasil, they do give you this as an option. Causes one enemy to become so fearful he can no longer attack, but may still defend. The victim may break the effect on a future turn, so not at once, so he has to wait a turn, by rolling 1 red die for each of his mind points. If a 6 is rolled, he returns to normal. I'll get to this in a minute. Flame of Healing. This skill may be used on any one hero, including yourself, restoring up to 4 lost body points, but may not go over their starting number. So standard heal. So I think what they wanted to do is take the regular elemental spell colleges, if you want, and give, okay, so there's an air heal and a fire heal. But I didn't want to overpower the wizard, so I basically put it into another category. So the elementalist has a mixture of powers. And so she's really powerful at certain ones, but just not as overall versatile as the wizard. So this summon elemental comes in with the upgrade system. So I have 2 levels, essentially. When you have a hero who's survived 3 to 5 quests, depending on whether they are easy quests or hard quests, they become a champion and they get certain benefits. If they complete a total of 10 to 14 quests, they become a knight. And get even more benefits. So what I decided is for night level, a mystic, alchemist, which is like a wizard equivalent, or the wizard may summon one elemental figure by sacrificing 3 unused skill or spell or scroll cards of one element type as an action on their turn. This element type determines the elemental summon. See elemental cards for details, and I'll get into that later, but this is like a higher level thing. So near the end of the game, if you're playing all the quests sequentially, the quest packs, you're going to get some really difficult ones like Mage of the Mirror and Frozen Horror and Dark Company, where it's just insanity. The monsters you face are nowhere near fair. And so I came up with these superpowers for the Wizard and the Mystic. And the question is, will it be too powerful or what? But we'll see. My gaming group hasn't actually gotten that far, so I may be tweaking these abilities as time goes on. But I will show you what I came up with for the elementals. If I can get enough room here. Even if you don't get to actually use them, it's fun to come up with this stuff. So you got a fire elemental. You've got a water elemental. So these guys could be running around the board after they've been summoned to do some major hurt on Zargon's evil forces. You've got an air elemental. It's kind of a see-through one, and yeah, it's in 2 pieces. I didn't want to glue it together because you can see the glue through the figure. I guess I could use transparent glue. Now you could shine a little light underneath it too, a little LED light for fun, for special effects. And then last but not least, the earth elemental. It's a big rock dude. I like the little detail. There's a little fossil in him too. And I still went with the solid color. Of course, these are colored plastics. Anyway, those are the elementals. Now, as you can see with these, all I did was choose them. I didn't really do any modifications to them except for the one that I painted there. But it's fun trying to come up with these new rules and just see how they could work. And again, I'm not the first person to come up with these ideas. Other people have come up with elementals. Other people have come up with rangers and so forth. But this is just my take on it. So after the mystic, set those aside here. We've got the paladin. So there's the paladin. So strong and pious warrior in combat, especially against creatures of chaos. And so what he has, he starts with armor. See, I always saw this starting armor thing on the hero's board, but they never start with any armor. Well, he does. So he's got 3 defense right off the bat. He has got chainmail. And he's got a short sword again. Everybody gets a short sword, just about. He's got 5 body and 4 mind. Now, his special ability is he has essentially 1 spell, or skill if you want to call it that, called Holy Flame. And yes, that comes directly from the Japanese version of the game, because in the Japanese version you have different levels of magic. You start out with first aid, and then you get Holy Flame and healing, and then you get the familiar spells we all know and love. But I thought, well, why waste it? Why not just give it to this guy? So his 1 spell is Holy Flame, and he also gets to generate a potion. But it's not any ordinary potion. In fact, it is taken directly from the European version of the game. It is holy water. Holy water functions more like a spell scroll because it's not, it takes an action to use it. And I'll show you in a moment here. But every quest he gets one. So if he doesn't use it, he can stockpile it. So he may have a lot of them saved up. So if you're going to be playing Return of the Witch Lord, fighting a lot of undead monsters, holy water is great to have. And so he's going to have a lot of it. Plus, since holy water is an item, he can give it to another hero. So he could arm his fellow heroes with holy water and do a lot of damage to Zargon's evil forces. Also, I wanted him to be the type of character who's familiar with armor. He's like a knight type of character. And so I decided when he's wearing plate armor, plate mail, he gets 1 extra square of movement. So when you think about it, plate mail is really powerful. It gives you those 2 extra combat dice in defense in HeroQuest by default, but it slows your movement down. So it knocks out a whole red die from your movement. So instead of rolling 2 dice, you're rolling 1. And if you got some bonus, you're still missing 1 die. So he gets 1 square plus 1, 1d6 plus 1, if that makes sense. Now, it's also true if he's wearing Borin's armor, he gets that bonus. So Borin's armor doesn't slow you down, but since it's plate, it'll still give you the extra movement. So here it is. So special abilities, Holy Water. Use this item instead of attacking to inflict 4 body points of damage on any chaos creature or undead you can see. Or restore 1 lost mind point, not over starting number. So there's a second use for Holy Water. Instead of throwing it at a monster to kill it, and I just put 4 body points. I could have just put it kills skeleton, mummy, zombie, but instead I just changed it to a body point formula. So I guess if you had some special type of undead monster that had more body points, it would only knock out 4. But you can also pour it over the head of one of your heroes who has taken mind point damage and restore 1 of those lost mind points, or on yourself. The paladin gains 1 holy water vial per quest, and each is good for 1 use only. Holy Flame. Use this ability to attack any monster you can see. Roll 2 combat dice. The enemy defends with defend dice equal to his mind points. Monsters with 0 mind points may not defend. So there you go. So it's an attack that's really effective against undead monsters. I also call them chaos creatures. So we're not necessarily talking about a chaos warrior, but actually in this case, chaos warriors are more susceptible to Holy Flame than, say, like a Fimir or an Orc. So it's a ranged attack, and you can use it once. So it's like he has 1 spell and 1 potion per quest, but the potions can stockpile. And then, as I explained, the extra movement. On his turn, a paladin wearing plate mail or Borin's armor gains 1 extra square of movement added to his movement roll. So there's the paladin. And there is a female version of the paladin, and I actually was kind of playing around with the designs. Originally, I had this character, but I thought, I don't know. I mean, it's a fun picture, but I don't know. It's like too casual. So I wanted more of a warrior-looking character, so I printed out this one. I think it looks a little cooler. So same type of thing. Paladin. And I'm going to show you the miniatures that I chose for those characters. So there's the male paladin. Focus. Again, Reaper Bones miniature. There we go. Sometimes it's just it's having a hard time with that for some reason. Okay, sorry about that. Camera, low budget camera, and there's the female paladin. So I thought they were pretty cool. So you got those two, and then I will show you their skill cards. You can call them spell cards if you want. I call them skill cards. So let's see here. At a certain point, you get too many cards, and you got to have like card boxes and card drawers and all kinds of things to hold all your cards. And then you got to keep track of them all. It's fun. It's a fun time. So there's I went with someone did these art images where you got the male and the female version of each class, and I really like that, so I modified those. So let's see, there's the Holy Flame. So the victim immediately rolls defense dice equal to his own mind points. So you got Holy Flame, and then there's another version of Holy Flame. just alternate artwork. And there's another Holy Flame. It's the same thing. Holy Flame. Okay, yeah, and there's the female paladin using Holy Flame to torch a zombie. I think that might actually be from the Avengers movies, but it's a pretty cool image, so I wanted to use that. There's holy water. 1 vial of this liquid is acquired each new quest and may be stockpiled. It can be used instead of attacking to deal 4 body points of damage to any normal chaos creature or undead you can see, or 1 lost mind point to yourself or any ally you can see, not over your starting number. So I said normal, so I guess, I mean, if it was some character, some boss character that's considered undead but is not like a normal monster, I guess it really wouldn't be effective against him, but against a regular undead creature, devastating. So, oh yeah, and then this is the alternate image. It's like I forget what movie that's from, but there was some movie where like the guy's head's on fire and it just looked like, it's like, okay, that's what's gonna happen when you crack him over the skull with a holy vial. So I've got a whole bunch of these because you may be stockpiling. Now you can just write next to the character how many vials they've got, but how fun is it to have a big stack of cards? You just have to keep handing them back to Zargon, saying, "Okay, I'm using this one. I'm using this one. I'm using." You can only use once per turn. But yeah, so there's the Paladin skills, Paladin character. All right, and next we have the Cleric. That's familiar to a lot of people. Cleric. So, Cleric, a pious healer, an enemy of evil. You have 2 healing abilities, one for comrades and one for yourself. Due to your personal convictions, you are unable to use any edged weapons. Now, I know a lot of the conventions in the games are not historically realistic or necessarily like scientifically accurate or whatever. I mean, who's to say a wizard can't use a sword? Why would a cleric not be able to use an edged weapon? Well, I know that exists out there in Gamerland, and I decided, okay, that'd be fun to kind of pick that up as a handicap for the character. So this character, like the paladin, starts out with armor. So he starts out with a cloak. And this is like the Cloak of Protection from the European version, but anyone can buy it. It's a more expensive version of chainmail, but the wizard can also wear it. So, and if you fall into a pit of darkness and against the ogre horde, the type of armor you're wearing determines how much damage you take. So that's a consideration also. So I gave him 5 body points, just like the paladin, and actually his stats are identical to the paladin. But he starts with a mace. Now a mace is equivalent to a short sword, but it's a club rather than a blade. Now you could say a mace has sharp edges, but whatever. That's just what I'm saying. So there's the female cleric. Same idea. Oh, you got a glimpse of the alchemist. Okay. Special abilities. Heal allies. And so instead of calling it healing, I decided to call it heal allies, and it is unique. This ability can be used on any allies you can see. So there's that line of sight thing. Restores up to 8 lost body points total. These points may be divided among the affected allies at the discretion of the healer. No character may go over the starting number. If the healer uses this ability to save themselves from dying, which is a thing in the North American version, it only restores 1 body point to the user. 1 use per quest. So what I didn't want is for the cleric to be able to just heal themselves with this and waste it in that sense. Instead, I wanted them to be support characters to say they need to help their allies first. So let's say they're surrounded by allies and they can heal up to 8. Well, they're going to heal 8. But let's say there's some body points left over after they've healed everyone that they can see. Then they can heal themselves with it. So I didn't write that on the card, but I decided that that was fair. But let's say they just get killed. Well, then they come back with 1 using heal allies. Recovery. To attempt to heal yourself, roll 4 combat dice. For each white shield, restore 1 lost body point, not over your starting number. As with other healing abilities, it can be used to save yourself from dying if you have not yet performed an action on your turn. Now, in actual practice, the first time I used this, the person who was controlling the cleric got killed, used her recovery. She didn't get any white shields, and so she just died. I was like, oh, that's not the best. But actually, I should say recovery I got from the Japanese version of the game. So healing, what they call healing, just generic healing, is this, that you have to roll dice to see if you actually heal yourself. And it's only for yourself, not for others. Restrictions. Cannot use edged weapons. No swords, axes, daggers, spears, but a mace or arrow launching weapon is permitted in battle. I just decided, okay, fine, they can use projectile weapons. But anyway, that's the cleric. And show you the cards for the cleric skills. So we've got heal allies there. So it's to heal a group without favoring yourself. But yes, it can be used in an emergency to heal yourself. And same one. Now at a higher level, a cleric can have 2 uses of the heal allies. So that's why I made multiple cards, and I used different artwork to distinguish them. So there's the female artwork. Again, it's not necessary because the effect is the same, but if you just wanted to have, you can have like a female character, and then the artwork reflects what that character might look like for fun. Just heal allies. And again, it's at the healer's discretion. So you've got a person in front of you that's really damaged. Maybe you want to give them a couple more health points, and then there's somebody else that just has lost 1. You can give them 1, whatever. And there's recovery. And there's recovery. So if you look at the trajectory here, you could say, okay, so the Mystic gets 5 spells. The Cleric gets 2. The Paladin gets 1 and a potion. And then the Ranger just gets 1. So, and if you had a party made up of these 4 heroes, yeah, they wouldn't be very powerful. But that's what they are. Okay. Yeah, I forgot to show you the miniatures. So there is the male cleric. Focus. So we got him there. And there's the female cleric. And the nice thing about if you're using Pathfinder is that you can find artwork that is meant to emulate what the miniatures look like and so forth. So there they are. Oh yes, and going back to the Mystic, the miniatures I chose for these heroes. So there's the female Mystic. Again, all Reaper bones here. Bones are their plastic miniatures, and it's not sponsored or anything. Dark Heaven are the metal ones, but I can't afford those with the projects I'm doing, so I just went with plastic. And the plastic is a little bit bendy. You can see it's a little bit bendy, but that's a good thing because if you dropped one of these and stepped on it by mistake, which I have done, it's going to bounce back a lot easier than, let's say, the original plastic HeroQuest, which would just break or have stress fractures, or even metal, where the metal will just break off. And you can glue it, but it's never going to be the same. Whereas this stuff, it's pretty easy. Plus, they're easy to modify. You can just take a razor blade and kind of modify it. They take paint pretty well. So I like them, but if you have something that works better for you, by all means, use what works. So those are the extra heroes. And now the one that I didn't show you is the Alchemist. Doesn't that look familiar? Well, there's the alchemist. It's actually supposed to be an elf, but I just modified him a little bit to be a human. I just kind of nipped his ears. Just kind of a funny thing. But the idea behind this is that if you wanted to play the game without magic and substitute alchemy instead, here's how you could do it. So he masters philosophy and lore. He has knowledge of inventions and chemicals and things. So he functions just like the wizard. And so as you can see, everything's very similar to the back of the regular card. Now I did say use a skill on yourself, another ally or monster that you can see. Barbarian and dwarf cannot use skills. See, the original says only the elf and the wizard can use spells. But with all these characters I've made, pretty much they're the odd ones out. The only pure combat characters are the barbarian and the dwarf after this. So, but that's the alchemist. So if you could just use a wizard figure and say, yeah, he's something else. But I really liked the way this character looked, and so I wanted to create this for him. So there's that. Oh yeah, and here's the apothecary. So kind of like a human version of the elf. Proficient in both chemical lore and the sword, you must use both well if you are to triumph. You have mastered 3 alchemical skills, all related to one natural element. So once again, and I do want to show you what I did with the alchemy. So, I did basically a whole conversion, essentially, and a lot of them I just changed the text a little bit, but I also wanted to change the artwork. I wanted to make some real interesting mod type things to the magic portion of HeroQuest, because really the magic is a big part of it. If you just take the magic out of the game, yeah, you've got your combat, but you miss a lot of the special effects, a lot of the special features, the fun little moments where the wizard's been hanging back all this time and then he jumps out and throws some spell to kind of boost everything. So in the original game, you've got the earth spells, right? Okay, pretty cool. What if you did alchemy? Well, Terra. So you've got the alchemical symbol for earth there. And what have you got? Oh, medicinal herbs. So instead of heal body, you've got medicinal herbs. It's kind of a cool thing. Stores your health. And what else would you have here? Oh, Hyrax cage. So I like the idea of the honey badger not caring at all and just digging through things. So here's kind of a fantasy version of the badger digging through rock, through solid rock, and the hero following him around. So you've got this cage that you can release the creature. And then presumably, it caves in behind you. And then you've got shellac and mortar. The skill may be used on any one hero, including yourself. So you get 1 extra combat die. So it's like you pour this concrete mixture on yourself that gives you temporary armor. So now you've got hydro instead of water. Well, I won't bother. Everybody knows these cards. So water is now hydro. And you've got the Flask of Fog. So that's like Veil of Mist. So it's like an ancient hand grenade. It's pretty cool. I had a lot of fun making these. Paralyzing Dart instead of Sleep. So you've got the little dart. And you'll notice here that I talk about chaos creatures a lot. So instead of undead monsters, what are undead? It's kind of supernatural, kind of whatever. Well, if you're not using magic, they would become a mutant, a zombie, because a zombie could be chemical, and a Sasquatch. So there's like a mutant Bigfoot in the game now. But I actually did it both ways. So you could have an alchemist in a magic game, or you could have them in a non-magic game. Either way, kind of a fun thing. You could have 2 wizards. You may need them with some of the quests you'll be facing. And so the last one is the healing tonic. That's pretty simple. Just another way to do healing. So revitalize in water. So We've got Hydro and Terra. So now if you were going to summon an elemental, you could cash these three in if you hadn't used them yet and get the Earth elemental. But I'll talk about that more. Pyro instead of fire. Pyro means fire. Okay, you got the Berserker Brew, and you can guess that that is like courage. And I made a slight modification because courage, it doesn't specifically say, but we always played it this way, is that let's say you kill all the monsters that you can see. You can use your movement now to run into the next room so that you can see a bunch of monsters again so that your courage continues on your next turn, because otherwise it runs out. So just like that, the Berserker Brew is a similar way. So at the end of your turn, if you can't see any monsters, then it runs out. So the idea would be you can kill a bunch of monsters, run to the next room. Hopefully you can see some more and you can keep that active. Next, got the Fire Lance. So if you've ever seen a certain Disney film, we'll say, cartoon from back in the day, you'll notice the rocket launchers from Asia. So instead of Fire of Wrath, you've got the Fire Lance, which is a primitive firearm from history. Then we've got Greek Fire. I love this. I mean, I researched this. I used to think Greek Fire was just like tar or something. But actually, what they think that these Greeks used to do back in ancient times is that they would have a siphon. It was almost like it's like a hand. There's a hand cannon version and then a larger version, but it was like a super soaker. Like you pump it up and you squirt the liquid, and it somehow catches fire and just devastates the enemy ship or whatever you're trying to burn. So I thought that was a cool idea to replace the ball of flame with a device, a physical device. But still, it requires skill to use, so it's not just something that any old hero can just whip out, but the alchemist knows how to use it. And then, last but not least, arrow, replacing air. So we've got the Gossamer Net. The shooter of giant spider silk entangles one monster you can see. That monster will then lose its next turn. So as you can guess, what this is instead of Tempest, it's like Spider-Man's web shooters. There you go. So, and I thought, well, giant spiders were mentioned in some of the unused concepts that were going to be in some future quest packs, and then they didn't do it. So I thought, well, that could be part of one of the industries in the HeroQuest world. You take that spider silk, and you could maybe cram it into a little shooter and use it to trap some monsters. So next, you've got the Chinese rocket. The skill activates a giant bomb. It'll do one of the following: open up any door. So just like the genie, but it just blasts open the door so that you can see what's beyond, or it can attack a monster with 5 combat dice. So you just launch a big rocket at them. And if you want it to be a seeking rocket, it could be. Somehow it is aimed perfectly. It's a cool idea. And as you can see, the alchemists are getting knowledge from all over the ancient world. It's not just Europe. And the last but not least, one of my favorites, the Warhog Bladder. Not a warthog, a warhog. So a giant pig that maybe like a goblin would ride into battle. If you take the bladder out, clean it out, you can use it as a balloon. I think I heard about this when I was in school, like pioneers. They would inflate the organs of the animal after they'd cooked it or whatever, and they could use it as a balloon. So just imagine a giant balloon tied to the back of a hero. He lets the air out in like a cartoon. He's gonna go flying down the hallway. So Swiftwind, a creative, clever way of making Swiftwind without magic. So yeah, it stretches plausibility a little bit, but it's still a fantasy game, and I really enjoyed creating those. So so the apothecary and the alchemist would be using these. So maybe you'd give Terra to the apothecary, and you'd give the rest to the alchemist to use. And of course, these are classic HeroQuest. You've got the earth, water, air, fire. But look at those characters. Don't those guys look cool? So I thought, oh, these are the elementals. And other people had come up with the idea too. It's like, well, what if you could summon that creature just by cashing these cards in? How cool would that be? Potentially game unbalancing, but you know. Oh yeah, and so then you've got all these chaos spells for the bad guys. What are you going to do with these if you're not using magic? Well, I decided that I would do something similar, but because there's so many of them, and because the artwork is so cool and you don't get to see it very much, because really there aren't that many characters that use chaos spells in the official quests, when you think about it, I decided, okay, I'm just going to keep the old artwork as much as possible, but maybe just tweak something here or there. And so I have this big stack now, and this can be used pretty much any time, Zargon. The only thing I don't like about felt is that it attracts lint. So if you really want to go all out, get velvet. Much more expensive than felt though. Harder to clean too, I've heard. Okay, so there's your chaos skills, chaos alchemy. So Zargon's not a wizard, he's a chaos alchemist. And what I decided in the demagikified world, which I'm calling it, which is a whole mod for HeroQuest, is that the you've got alchemists, so they deal with like materials and chemicals and things. You've got apothecary, it's kind of like a lower level version of that. You've got mentalists, so they use mental type abilities, and also some, you know, psychotropic compounds and things. And then you've got elementalists, so they deal with elements and just stuff that's on the borders of known science. So anyway, these are the chaos stuff. So you've got the ice storm. So this is from the Frozen Horror, but it's instant ice. So this is one of the inventions of the alchemists, is this instant ice. You can just throw it into the air and it turns instantly into shrapnel that they can use. So what else have we got? Mirror skill. You know, the artwork is familiar, but the idea is they can block a hero's attack and send it back to the back on the ones who tried to use it. And it's cool because the picture he's just holding a mirror or a shield, a mirrored shield. So it's kind of a cool idea, just whatever it was. Let's see, skate. Well, that's easy. You've got skates. You skate past. If you're familiar with HeroQuest, a lot of these will be familiar. Dispel, just kind of like a counter. So just like a dispersal field or something. Restore chaos, just a heal for the bad guys. This one really I didn't have to change at all, just kind of the design. Mind freeze, so this is like a mentalist attack, very devastating on your mind points. See, ice wall. Again, using instant ice, so you can create these barriers. Now you could use one of these, or you could use the cardboard printouts, cardboard door substitutes that come with some of the other expansions. So however you want to do it. Or you can actually I should say for this one, you want to use tiles. I'm sorry. There's a different version of Ice Wall, but yeah, you can use tiles. And I do have the tiles in another box. I'm actually going to have to show you the tiles in another stream because I don't have the box with me. I have so much stuff, too much stuff really. But Ice Wall. So instead of magic ice, you got instant ice. Now summon wolves, that's a classic. That really doesn't change. I mean, you've got werewolves in HeroQuest, but instead of magic, it's alchemical. Mind blast, another mentalist type of attack. Against the Ogre Horde fans will remember this. Sorry, I'm starting to get a little scratchy there in my throat. Excuse me. Lycanthropy. So that's the so-called werewolf's curse. Heroes can actually turn into werewolves. And again, I didn't create this artwork. I just modified it. So chaotic revival. So this allows you to revive some of your bad guys that just got iced and bring them back into the battle. Soothe, so it's like another healing for the bad guys. Chill, it's kind of an instant attack. So touch of instant ice. It almost looks like he's throwing an ice pack on him and kind of freezing him a little bit. Yeah, once you get to the frozen horror, I mean, you've got the barbarian and he's fighting just these really powerful monsters in huge numbers, and the other heroes are hiring mercenaries to try to help him out. Just massive battles, and a lot of people say they weren't play tested, they're just, but once you've got these abilities, you may be able to face them. So there's Lightning Bolt, it's the same, except it's using hidden battery technology to launch an electrical attack in these different directions. So it's a classic chaos ability. And you've got escape, under cover of a blinding flash. I pictured like maybe a flashbang or some kind of like pyrotechnic thing for the bad guy to escape and live to fight another day or draw it out. Zombie toxin. So here was my idea of how zombies would work in a magicless or demagikified campaign. Well, it's just mind control drug, essentially is what it is. So, but he can still try to resist it. So Zargon can take control of one of the heroes. Firestorm. So an incendiary bomb, that's pretty simple. Very devastating. Terror dart. So kind of like the sleep dart, toxic dart, whatever. It's the effect of fear. There's the paralyzing dart. Speaking of which, sleep. We've got summon chaos. Now that artwork I just kind of modified from some existing images. So you've got the Chaos Sasquatch, Zombie, and the Chaos Mutant. So you may recognize those characters. And I'll show you, I have miniatures that I've used. Let me show you right now, actually, while I'm thinking of it. So that is a Chaos Mutant. Now I know it's huge. It would actually fit well on the remake board because the squares are 1 inch in size. I actually do have a board that has 1 inch squares that I had custom made. But yeah, so it's kind of a spindly character. So this would be like another version of a skeleton. Same stats as a skeleton, but this is a mutant created by Chaos. So I pictured them working in a lab with like these insect type forms, and they just kind of mutated this monster who's going to come after you with a spear. So that's a Chaos Mutant. And then what about a Sasquatch, which of course is Bigfoot, cousin of the Yeti. I love this miniature. I mean, he just looks so angry and so like ready to just make a mess of anybody in his path. So I like it. You think of Bigfoot as just wandering through the woods trying not to be photographed. This guy is a little different, a little crazier. And he's got the same exact stats as a mummy. But I also decided that as a bonus feature, in certain situations, he can just go nuts. He'll just go haywire, and he'll attack anybody that's nearby, friend or foe alike. So like if he gets wounded and there's other monsters that are near him and the heroes are far away, he may just start attacking them. So could be interesting. And then for the zombie, I didn't use any new figures because I figure, hey, zombie's good enough. So as we go through the chaos pile here, what's next? I haven't even looked at these in quite a while. It's got the acid spray, so that's like rust. It's metal-eating acid. Cloud of Chaos hasn't changed. It's an exploding canister of nerve gas. Very devastating. And I would say this is the most devastating chaos spell or chaos alchemist skill that's in the game by default. Greek fire. Why should the good guys have all the fun? So instead of Ball of Flame, Gossamer Net instead of Tempest. Summon Oryx, that's pretty simple to figure out. You know, instead of being magically summoned, maybe you blow a horn or something like that. Strands of Binding, fire threads from your wrist to entangle one figure. So some of these are very hardly changed all. And I figure, well, you know, Rust, this makes it unique from the acid spray. It's like an oxidizing liquid, little damage, heroic equipment, nasty stuff, madness. So again, this chemical warfare on the part of the bad guys. Wall of Flame. So here you can use the fire as before, or you can use one of those cardboard stand-up door replacements, as in Wizards of Morkar or Wizards of Zargon, whatever you want to call it, Alchemists of Chaos. It's an adventure where Zargon basically has these really powerful magic users that he sends to assassinate the heroes. Of course, it's more like the heroes track them down to wipe them out, but they're really, really powerful, and it's very difficult. So Escape, another version of Escape. You can go anywhere on the board. Dispel, again, it's like a flashbang or something that just blocks whatever you were throwing at him. Summon Sasquatch. So instead of Summon Mummy, I just changed the graphic there. And these techniques that I'm using here, a lot of fans do this sort of stuff. Just take an existing card and maybe just modify the text, modify the picture a little bit, just to fit the type of game that you're wanting to play, the story that you're trying to tell. It's not that you're trying to replace the game, you're just trying to enhance it a little bit for your particular story. You know, everybody has their own idea of what makes the game better or worse. There's Skulls of Doom. So I actually came up with a vampire character. And vampires are in the game. They're in Legacy of Sorasil. So instead of having a necromancer, he's a vampire. So he throws an exploding skull at you. Fear, of course. Mutant Call. So instead of calling a skeleton, not like you're calling him on the phone, but you're summoning him, you could actually summon a mutant or a couple of mutants. I like the character design. It's just really cool. And yes, the original name of this figure, you can find him in Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons. It's like a ice devil or frost demon type of character. So I took it in a totally different direction. It's actually like a mutant bug, because that's what it looks like. And I love the design. It's like a cross between a human, a lizard, and an insect, like a grasshopper. Fun stuff. You've got Deathbolt. Almost looks like a laser gun. Could be, maybe. Primitive laser. Chestburster. So it was hard for me to come up with some artwork that looked acceptable for this, but I thought, you know what? It doesn't have to be super gruesome. But the idea is instead of, so the original spell was the bad guys can resurrect a dead monster. So I thought, but they replace him with a skeleton. So I thought, well, it's like the skeleton is popping out of the monster. Well, just like in the movie Alien or Aliens or Alien 3, whatever you want to call it, Alien Resurrection. We don't talk about those newer movies, but yeah, maybe this was inside the monster and it popped out, burst forth, and attacked. It's kind of a PG thing, PG-13 maybe. Blinding Sleet. So you've got the evil elementalist filling a room with instant ice dust to do damage. Earthquake. Seismic charge that creates an earthquake. A big, huge pit opens up. Lightning bolt. All I did was I changed the graphic here. But again, it's an electrical attack. Actually, here it looks kind of like a fireball, but I didn't change that part of it. That's how it looked originally. Hurricane. I didn't state it here explicitly, but this could be another type of, like, does he have a bag of air that he's squeezing on the heroes, or is it something to do with instant ice? Is it an explosion? What is it? But it pushes everyone back. So somehow he can do that. And a thieving wind. So it's kind of a sucking power instead of a blowing power. Wall of ice. So again, that instant ice technology. Sharpened blades. Now there is an orc alchemist as well. The idea of orcs having other abilities besides just hacking and bludgeoning was in the original game. I mean, you've got all kinds of characters like Grak and Ulag. Ulag, I should say, not Grak. So anyway, yeah. So you sharpen the blades of your fellow orcs and make them a little bit stronger. So that's not really changed. Orc Berserker, not really changed. Shield of Protection. So you might be able to guess what movie that's from, but it's like a shield wall with your guys. Oops. Spirit of Vengeance. The skill launches a rocket bomb called the Spirit of Vengeance against any one figure on the board. So it's kind of like the evil version of a genie or Chinese rocket. That poor mercenary. Summon orcs. And here it even says that you can take 2 orcs from anywhere on the game board and place them within line of sight. So it's just like you're rallying them to your side. It's not magical. It doesn't have to be. Summon goblins, same way. Mind Blast. Now someone else created that image. You may recognize this from Against the Ogre Horde. All right, I think we're having some issues with the stream. Let me just double check, see what's going on here. All right, if there's a slight delay, I do apologize for that. But here you've got your classic Mentalist attack. You've got Mind Lock. Probably what I'll end up doing is I'll have an additional stream to kind of supplement what we've talked about here, because I could just go on and on with these. I mean, there's so many of these I've created in collaboration with others. So got Dominate, their Mentalist ability. And against the Ogre Horde, you had the Ogres, which were big combat monsters, but you also had these Mentalists who had these different mind powers to attack the heroes. Now, this was one I kind of modified. Summon Greenskins, so it's a variation. You could summon goblins or orcs instead of just one or the other. And then summon Chaos Warriors. I haven't actually used this yet, but you only, for each black shield you roll, you get a Chaos Warrior. So you may not get any, because what are the odds? 1 in 6 for each die. But if the bad guy has a lot of mind points and he uses this, he could theoretically get a lot of Chaos Warriors on the screen, on the map, on the quest map, the board. If all the heroes on the board are knights, substitute blue dice when rolling. Now I should talk about colored dice. So colored dice have been around for quite a while, and all they are is you had people that are just playing with the probabilities of the HeroQuest dice a little bit. And it's really simple because they can all be simulated on regular 6-sided dice, but it's just more fun if you can have variations. So we all know about the classic HeroQuest dice. You got 3 skulls, you got 1 black shield, you got 2 white shields or hero shields. So, but people have made these custom, it's a blue die. Well, it's got 2 of these black shields. I mean, they're white here, but it's reversed. And then only 1 of these hero shields, and then the 3 skulls. So if a monster is rolling one of these, he now has 2 chances to get his defense. And then, of course, with the chaos ability, he'd have a better chance rolling one of these. So this modifies the outcome. Another type of, and I didn't design these dice, someone else did, this guy from Germany who makes them now. This is a black die. Now this has 4 skulls on it. So if you're attacking and you use one of these, it's even more likely to come out as a skull. So you can upgrade someone's attacks by saying, okay, now you get to use black dice. Oh yeah, well my guy gets to use blue dice to defend. So plays with the abilities. Now a monster that's defending like this is defending like a hero, because heroes get the 2 white shields. So 2 and 6 chance. Whereas the monsters only get 1 and 6 normally. So this is 2 and 6. What else can I talk about here? Well, there's green dice. So with green dice, there's an extra white shield. So this would be if a hero, excuse me, blast into the mic, hero is rolling for defense, he has more of an opportunity to defend. But now if he was using this to attack, which why would you want to do that? But he would have a weaker attack because there's only 2 skulls. See that? Only 2 skulls instead of the usual 3. Wait, am I wrong about that? Nope. Okay, just making sure. I don't use these as much, but maybe certain artifact or something will give the hero, allow them to use one of these instead of just a white one, so they can have better defense. Now I haven't used these much, but here's some more. There's purple. Almost looks black on there, but I assure you that is purple, not black. Here, I'll show the black next to it. Need better lighting. Almost looks dark blue on this camera. Sorry about that. Need professional studio lighting. But see, there's a double skull. So there's a chance to get a double skull, a double black shield, double white shield, regular shield, skull. So there's some variation. So you can come up with some idea like, oh, well, maybe with 1 die you could get double defense or double attack. It's purple. There's yellow, which is actually very similar. So you got 2 skulls, 2 white shields, 2 black shields. And you've got orange, again very similar, 2 skulls, 2 white shields, 2 white shields, 2 skulls, 2 black shields. So different variation. I haven't used the orange, the yellow, or the purple really in my quests, but I have used black, I have used blue, and I have used green, and those are kind of the 3 main ones. So, yep, custom dice. Now these are just dice that I just colored the pips. I mean, they're not perfect, but you can see they're kind of gold instead of white. But you can see I didn't quite get the edges perfect, so they have kind of a white. Because as you use them a lot, they get kind of worn down. So there's probably a better way to do this than I've been doing, but I'm open to suggestions and feedback. So that's gold. I also have some that are silver, and they turned out really nice. I think better than the gold, actually. It's hard to find a really shiny gold paint. I mean, it's not electroplated or anything. And then these things are fun for storing dice. So it's that. And what else can I show you? Quite a few things, actually. But I think other than the new heroes, the new dice, the new miniatures, there's a few other things quick I can show you. So I've talked quite a bit about the Japanese version of HeroQuest, which has its own rules and all kinds of, it's almost like they took the game, the assets of the game, the tiles, board, and cards and everything, and just kind of made their own game out of it. And it's really neat. And a lot of people have worked on it to translate it for English speakers. I don't even know, I mean, is there a fan community in Japan that still maintains it? I guess we'll find out. But since I don't speak Japanese, don't read it, I'm totally reliant on other people to kind of convert it. But I did make some cards for the spells that they talked about. So there's healing, very basic. So as you can see, it's just like recovery because this was the inspiration for it. There was originally no card. I just made a card for it. And then Holy Flame, just kind of joking. It's like a little flame blowtorch with and it's like a comet of fire, so you can attack an enemy, and that's Holy Flame. First aid is what you start with, so a little tribute to the original first aid kit, and it just gives you 1 body point. Now I decided that you would only use it once, but in the actual game you can use it over and over again. So it's kind of it's the most basic form of magic that they would give to you, which is that you can just stay in a room, just keep heal, 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 heal. Okay, you're ready to go, and just more copies of it. Because the way they do it in the Japanese version is at first there's no magic at all except the wizard gets this. And then in a few quests later, you get these 2 to choose from. And if you're the elf, you can just get one or the other. But if you're the wizard, you get both. They call the wizard the magician in the Japanese version. And there's a person on the forums, Hispazargon, who's done like as literal a translation as possible and has been doing that. But then there's a bunch of other people's work that he based his work on, and they did a lot of the hard work with translating and trying to find the scans of the assets and everything. It's just really, really neat. So it'll be interesting to see when the remake comes out if fans from other countries come out of the woodwork and say, I remember what HeroQuest was like, and here's the mods that I'm going to make for it. Because it was big in the UK, it was big in the United States, it was big in Brazil. But there's other versions. I mean, you can find it in German, and Hebrew, and Portuguese, and just all kinds of stuff. Probably other languages that we don't even know about, or translations. Not like it's like an Esperanto or Klingon or something. But hey, if somebody wants to make the Klingon or Elvish or Latin version, go for it. I'm sure someone will appreciate your work. So those are a lot of my homebrew stuff, and there's other little things I've created or modified, but I think I'm going to save those for a future stream. Except I will say one thing. I know I talked about well, there's so much I could talk about. Okay, I'll talk about a few more. Okay, so the heroic upgrades. So my upgrade system. These are just kind of to remember them by, but so let's say you've got a dwarf champion. So that speaks for itself. So you can, as a champion, you can substitute 1 black die when attacking with any axe or hammer, because I wanted to enhance his combat abilities. So instead of rolling, let's say he's got a battle axe, normally it'd be 4 white dice. Well, it'd be 3 white dice and 1 black die. So it's a greater chance of a skull. So it's like he's more efficient with fighting. As a knight level, when he's completed 10 to 14 quests, now he can substitute 2 black dice when attacking with any axe or hammer. And you may be wondering, well, wait a minute, what are these hammers? I don't remember hammers. Well, I have an expanded armory. I think we're having a little bit of trouble with the stream there. Okay, I think we're back. Okay, yeah, so I have an expanded armory, which again, inspired by a lot of other expanded armories. I mean, if you look up HeroQuest expanded armories, you'll get dozens of results. But in mine, there's like a handheld hammer weapon, and then there's a big like maul type warhammer, and it's also a tribute to Warhammer Fantasy. So anyway, 2 black dice, and then he does auto disarm, meaning he no longer has to roll to disarm a trap. He just automatically disarms it. So that's for the upgrade for the dwarf. Now the cleric will get 2 uses of the heal allies skill, and at knight level heals allies up to 16 body points per use instead of just 8. And then the recovery skill uses green dice, so more likely to succeed in self-healing. Now, I haven't had a lot of characters that have gotten to knight level. I think only 1 barbarian so far of the people I've played with. So it'll be interesting to see if these upgrades are good or if it's just like, wow, they're still way too weak. I need to make some tweaks here and there. But I like the sense of accomplishment. It's like, okay, you kept this character alive and you bought everything you could, but now they've got some fun abilities. And you can actually simulate those colored dice too, just by, let's say, instead of like you could count, like for black dice, you could count skulls as skulls, but you could also count the black shield as a skull, like an additional skull. See how I did that? So it's possible. Anyway, this is the Champion Ranger. So at champion level, his ranged attacks use black dice. It's pretty good. So if he's using a bow, he can disarm traps with green dice, or a green die, I should say, because he just rolls one green die. So he has a greater chance of disarming. So actually that makes him as strong as the dwarf in that respect. And then he'll get 2 added to his movement roll instead of just 1. And then at knight level, he's got +3 to his movement roll, and he does 2 attacks with the same ranged weapon. So he's going to be really powerful by then. I mean, he's still easy to kill, but he'll have great combat prowess. So the Mystic will get to choose a 6th elemental skill. So instead of just 5 spells, she gets 6. And then at knight level can summon an elemental if those 3 skill cards are used of the same type. Wizard. Now I decided to actually upgrade the wizard a little bit more. So after completing only 1 quest, from then on he gets to draw 2 random potions. And yes, there is a potions deck, which someone else created the idea of it, but why not take all the potions from the game and put them on cards? So you could draw like a potion of healing, you could sell it, or you could buy, actually what I wanted to do with this is, so it says 200 gold coins. The idea is you draw one of these, and let's say you're between quests, and you're like, you know what, I want to buy some more of these. So you can just buy additional copies and write them on your character sheet. You put that back. So potions. So the wizard, if he's not using them, he could get a lot of potions by the end. Now, if you're allowed to sell potions back, that's just going to be infinite gold, essentially. So I think we're getting close to the end of the stream here. But if we can continue on, if we don't continue having issues here, I apologize for any issues. Looks like we're still recording, still live. So yeah, so the wizard, as you can see, you can see that on the screen there. Each of the spells has just a little bit of a bonus. But if he's wearing the wizard's cloak as a champion, he gets a green die for defense. And if he's using the wizard's staff artifact, he can use black dice to attack. See, so he gets some slight improvements there. Now, a lot of these spells, I wasn't really sure what to add to them, so I may expand that. I mean, you can see the fire spells aren't listed on there, except for courage. Well, I guess Fire of Wrath. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I did get the fire. Oh, see, some of these I've updated so much I've kind of forgotten, but there you go. And then at knight level, he gets that summon elemental ability. So the barbarian, substitute 2 black dice when attacking with any sword. And then at knight level, he substitutes 3 black dice when attacking with any sword or axe. He can draw 1 combat potion, so an attack or defense-based potion card. Now, there aren't that many of them, so you just pull those out of the potions deck and let him just draw a random one. And then he can draw 1 extra combat card between quests. Now, you might ask, what are the combat cards? Well, I'm glad you asked. A couple of people connected with Ye Olde Inn and Phoenix created these. So you got these cards where you can draw abilities for pure combat type characters. So the dwarf and the barbarian, although that looks like the elf, but the dwarf and the barbarian can draw some of these, and it's like instead of having a spell, they'll just have like a combat enhancing, ability. And I love these. So I didn't create these. All I did was just kind of like clean them up a little bit for card use. And the bad guys get these too. So there's chaos versions too, which enhance monsters. Monsters get different abilities. So, but anyway, instead of just having 2 combat cards at knight level, he can get 3. I even came up with a bit of a homebrew rule where, let's say you roll doubles, nothing happens. It's just you roll doubles. Well, let's say it's your 3rd or 4th time rolling doubles. Maybe I'll let you draw another combat card as Zargon. So maybe you could earn something like that. And it's also kind of fun to say, well, what if you're playing with somebody and they come up with some plausible thing a feat that a hero could do. It doesn't really fit in with the game, but it's like, okay, well, what if I jump over the table and, try to clobber this guy? It's like, okay, you know what? Roll 1 combat die. If it comes out a skull, you failed. If it comes out anything else, you succeeded. Like that sort of thing. Or what if I took a potion and I chucked it across the expanse and let the other hero catch it? It's like, okay, roll, and if it's a skull, you dropped it. And if it's anything else, then he caught it. So that could be a way that you can kind of add a little bit of spice to the game, but without making it unreasonable, because it's still the game master's call what you decide to do. The elf, I wanted to give him more magic, so similar to the wizard, he'll draw 1 random potion between quests after his first completed quest, but he only gets 1 instead of 2. As a champion, he can draw 1 random alchemist item, which is another name for a spell scroll each quest. I made cards for those too. I'll have to show you in probably the next stream. If we're having problems with the stream, I do apologize. Looks like we're having some issues. So we may be having some memory issues with that, but we'll see how it turns out. I may have to re-record some sections if you can't see what's happening or can't hear what I'm saying. And then he may use champion spells. So just like with the wizard back here, with these modified spells, he can use those too for the ones that he's got. So he'll get to draw a random spell scroll. So it's like he has 4 spells instead of 3. And then he can draw 2 random alchemist items or spell scrolls each quest when he's at a knight. So it'd be like he had 5 spells. So the elf's moving up in the world. So that's the elf's heroic upgrade. And then last but not least, the paladin. So at champion level, the paladin would use black dice against chaos, so against undead type creatures or chaos creatures, whatever you want to call them. These guys with the sickly yellow-white color miniature. He'll get 2 holy water each quest instead of just 1, so he can really stockpile them. And Holy Flame uses 3 combat dice, so he gets a big upgrade. And then as a knight, he'll have 2+2 movement squares when he's wearing plate armor or Born's armor. And I'll have 4 holy water acquired each quest. So he's really going to be stocked. I might have made this guy too powerful, just like I might have made the ranger too weak, but we'll see. And then his Holy Flame uses 4 combat dice, so he keeps getting stronger. Now, Holy Flame, if you have played Wizards of Morcar expansion, the EU exclusive, it's actually called Arrows of the Night. It's a darkness spell, and it uses 2 combat dice. So, but coincidentally, Holy Flame from the Japanese quest uses 2 dice. So it's pretty much the same ability, it's just different names. So I'm going to end the stream there because I do want to check and see what's going on with the memory. So I hope this was interesting. Some of it may be very boring to you if you are not really familiar with HeroQuest, or if you just have your own ideas of how the game should be and you don't agree with me. But I do hope that you've seen some of the stuff that can be done with the game, some of the cool stuff that can be made. I hope you check out places like Ye Olde Inn and see what other folks have created. There's so much you can do if you're willing to put in the time and maybe a little bit of money, not a whole lot, to print out some stuff, paint some miniatures, cut out some cardboard, whatever you want to do to just enhance the game experience. Maybe put something special on the table, and it's still cheaper than painting an army of 40K figures. So, all right, until next time, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, take care.